right, ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you how excited I am about the next hour because we get to talk about one of my favorite things in the world, which is strategic coach. I'm going to be your host, but it's not about me today. It's really about you guys hearing from some of our coach clients. And we've got a really cool range today of folks that have been in the program everywhere from a couple years to literally almost 30 years of being a strategic coach. My own journey started 22 years ago. I was in my first workshop in Los Angeles, and I'll tell you what, my life at that moment took a direction change. And I had no idea that day that was what was going to take place. But it was, I get to look back now. Every 90 days for the last 22 years, I've been in a room at Strategic Coach doing the thinking about my business, about my life, about freedom of time, money, relationship, purpose. And I've seen this extraordinary transformation. And I can't say that about many things. I don't know about you, but transformation is rare. It's precious. It doesn't happen all the time. And when I look back at my journey, my personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ was the biggest transformation for me personally. The second was my marriage to my wife 32 years ago. And the third, no joke, was Strategic Coach. And it's changed everything. So today, the thing we're excited about sharing with you is just a conversation of how has Strategic Coach made a practical difference in the way we look at our business, in the way we look at, again, our team, our unique ability, our freedoms, all those things. And how does that correspond to, again, an extraordinary life? So I want to, without any further ado, I want to welcome our panelists. We have four amazing entrepreneurs, different industries, different parts of the country, different, again, lengths of time at Strategic Coach, all with their own unique stories. And so I'm going to just give you all four of their names right now. We've got Mr. Richard Rossi here on the screen. Richard, can you wave and say hi? There he is, Mr. Richard Rossi. Again, Richard's been here. He'll tell you about his story. Next, we have Chris Kowalik. I don't think I've said your name right. Is that right, Chris?
You got it.
I got it right. We got Chris Kowalik. Welcome in. We're glad you're here. And then we have Brett Ruiz. Brett, welcome in. So glad you're here. And we have Eric Brown. All right. Welcome in, Eric. Super glad you're here. So, guys, I'm going to start with just asking our panelists here to give you a bit of their story. Okay, they're entrepreneurs like you, and I'm going to start with Chris today. Ladies first. Chris, if you would, just where were you? First of all, where are you from? Where's your business? What is your business? And what was it that brought you into Coach? And then give us a couple minutes of a story of the transformation that you've seen.
Yeah, so my name is Chris Kowalik. I am the founder of ProFeds. So we help financial professionals serve the federal employee community. So helping them to figure out all of their crazy benefits and put some planning around it. And when I think about the journey, the entrepreneurial journey, I think I'm probably like everybody else on this call that if you look back far enough in your life, you see little glimpses of the entrepreneurial gene, starting to poke its head out, and you don't always appreciate or recognize it in its entirety when it's happening, especially as a child, when you get in your teens and early adulthood, and then you start to see those markers as you look back. So, I would say the entrepreneurial piece in me really started to sprout, I think, in a very unlikely place, was in the Marine Corps. So I had joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, and I know that that's a very structured, disciplined, bureaucratic organization, right? I mean, if we think about the military, there needs to be those controls. And so that's why I think it's an unlikely place that journey really began. But the work that I did in the Marine Corps, I was an Arabic linguist, so a translator of sorts. And although I didn't stand between two people and translate for them, I listened to a lot of radio signals to get an idea of what was happening in the region so that I could translate that complexity into simple language so that our commanders could use that intel to make decisions on what they were doing. And I didn't realize it until several years into the work that I'm doing now, that that is what coach would call my unique ability,
Come
right?
on.
Of taking something that's really complicated and distilling it down, knowing it so well that you can distill it down into simple language for people so that they can take action. And so it was I didn't realize it at the time, but that was certainly a big part of the journey. And looking back, being able to realize that that was the underpinning of the work that I was later going to do. In 2001, I got out of the Marine Corps kind of unexpectedly. And for the next 7 years, I worked with some really amazing people in the financial planning space who worked with the military. And I loved the work that I did. I loved helping these advisors really like tighten up what they were doing and being able to live out their purpose of helping a lot of service members plan for retirement. And I found, being in the field, I loved it because I got to be right down with the people. And then I tell people I got demoted to the home office. They wanted what I did in the field for my area to be done for the whole company. And I got there and I realized pretty quickly that our priorities were not aligned, right? There were a lot of competing priorities that they had. And so this vision that I had for what was possible for these financial professionals being able to help federal employees along with the military, I thought, man, there's such an opportunity here, but it's not going to happen if I stay here.
Come on.
And so in 2008, I left that company. I started ProFeds. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but in 2008, we had the housing crisis, right? So the market was haywire, like everything was nuts. And, being able to step into the entrepreneurial world, I mean, it was really amazing and kind of scary at the same time because I felt like I was alone on an island, right? Nobody was there to be my safety net. Everything was on my shoulders. On one hand, like this idea of being scrappy and figuring things out was really amazing. But it came with the long hours and just that stick-to-itiveness that as entrepreneurs we really need. And then there's this funny dichotomy that I'm sure everyone's experienced, everyone on this call at least has experienced to some degree, and that is this like fearless determination to do the thing that you're trying to do, and a sprinkling of little doubt. And I think the best entrepreneurs are the ones that see that doubt and they let it fuel them. They let it make the idea of capturing that purpose even stronger for them. Because a lot of people fold when there's doubt. And I found something really pretty unique amongst the strategic coach community is that, yeah, there's doubt all around, and we just repackage that doubt into fuel for the future. And so I love being around a lot of people that think that way. And so, when we sit in a room, and I love that you guys named this session today, that you've got ambition in the name, right? That ambitious entrepreneur, because in some ways it can be a 4-letter word, right? With our families, with our friends, because they don't get it.
Yeah.
And frankly, they all think we're a little crazy and sometimes a lot crazy for doing what we do. And so this idea that as entrepreneurs, we're crazy enough to work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week for somebody else, right? We're willing to do the work and be gritty and scrappy and make it happen.
Yeah.
It's what frankly makes us all unemployable. Like we couldn't go work for somebody else at this point. And so that fuel of figuring it out and bringing that purpose to the world is pretty cool. I will share with you, when I was first introduced to Coach, I was so excited and I did not qualify. My revenue was too low. My personal income was too low. And so, of course, the Marine in me was like, okay, cool, challenge accepted. That's the target. So I'm going to go make that happen. And so in early 2017, I was finally able to join. And I loved that room. From the moment I walked into that room, I loved the community that we had. The coach so Gary Klaben was my first coach. Love Gary. I then moved on to Adrian Duffy, which I adore. And now Chad, you're my 10X coach. I love it. But everybody in that room, from the coach to all the support staff at Strategic Coach to all the entrepreneurs that are in that room, everybody there wants each other to win. And that is not very common in a lot of industry type of events. And so I found a great home there. I felt very comfortable. And to your point that you made earlier, Chad, this room is going to be full of different types of entrepreneurs, right? From all these different industries. So in any given session, I might be sitting next to a real estate agent, somebody who works on HVAC systems, a financial advisor, somebody who owns an MMA gym. I mean, we just have all sorts of different types of people. But one thing that I found so interesting is that we all have the same problems, right? We might call them different, we might use different words to describe them, but we all have the same problems. Now, I wish that I could tell all the people listening to today's call that we don't have problems anymore because we have magically been part of Strategic Coach. But the reality is that we just have cooler problems now. We still have problems. They're just cooler and bigger problems, that have bigger impact when we solve them. And so that's a really cool feeling to know that within the Strategic Coach walls, we have an amazing group of people that are there to help us win. And so when I think of my coach journey, I think of like the BC and the AC, the before coach and the after coach side of the house. And I will share with everybody listening today that the Strategic Coach invoice that I pay every year is my favorite invoice to pay.
Come on.
I love it. And when I first signed up, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, but we're going to make it happen. And it is some of that fuel. That's a little part of the doubt. Like, oh man, I'm going to put all this money towards this. Is this going to work? And I love that when I show up, just like you do, every 90 days, you get that clarity on yourself, on your mindset, helping your team to get clearer. And I think probably most important in what we tend to focus on when we're in coach is how do we get clearer on the ways we can serve other people?
It's good.
And,
Good.
in our sessions, like I can count on one hand the number of times I've heard people talk about their revenue. It's just not a thing. We talk about impact and what we can do to drive that for our teams, for our families, and for our ultimate clients, whoever that might be for the entrepreneur that's in the room. And so, this idea that there's this friendship of the community in that room has been a huge transformation in my life, because in that room, in a lot of rooms, I might be the oddball, right? The weird entrepreneur that, has crazy ideas. But in this room, I'm not. I'm like everybody else there. And so I feel very much at home. And so when you guys asked me to be part of this, I thought, man, if we can get some of that message out to people who are debating, like, does this make sense for me? Yes. I hope that everyone will really take that and run with it.
Chris, your gift. Your gift. It's been so fun to watch. I've gotten to see just parts of your journey. And I love how you went to freedom of purpose, right? You sit there in purpose, impact, this beauty of that. Many of us, when we came into coach, you mentioned, I barely qualified, right? I fought to qualify. It's interesting, we could get removed from some of those freedoms of freedom of money and time even, right? And the importance of that driver coming into coach. Has coach changed your money situation?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
So in preparation for today's call, I just went in the Wayback Machine and looked at the revenue that I had right before I joined. Yeah. And to date, we've 25x'd.
Okay.
Boom.
See, and what's crazy, Chris, I think this really matters to people who are considering coach, right? Because they're thinking about writing this check. Oh, I'm going to go do this thing. Yeah, they want purpose, impact, all this. Many of them are sitting there going, man, a double of, or a 5x or a 10x of my income, or the size of my company, the freedom, or time. So many are strapped, right? They're sitting there going, guy, they hear you guys talk about free days and blocks of free days where you're truly free, right? And you get to have not only a business that's doing what it does, but it's also giving you life personally for those personal pursuits. And, so impact there too? Are you grinding to get that 25x? Are you just a
It's
slave to the machine, right?
it's not the grind. It's not the grind anymore, or a different kind of grind in the
Yeah.
visionary seat versus
Yes.
all the seats that I used to sit in.
Beautiful.
And I will share with you in my Wayback Machine that I went to find these numbers. I looked at what how the revenue changed in the first year that I was in coach, and it doubled.
Come on. And here's the
So
thing.
yeah,
I won't promise that to everybody, Chris. I
sure.
mean, some people it takes them, 2 years or whatever. Everybody's on their journey, but yeah, wow, right? Those freedoms that we talk about at Coach are so real. And
Yeah.
and man, to be able to witness those transformations happen where you come in with this great expectation, but then to actually see it worked out. And I want to congratulate you. You did the work. You're doing the work always. It's just such a cool thing. Anyways, your gift. We'll probably circle back. And guys, those of you who are listening to this call, there's a chat set bar over here. Throw, if you would, any questions you might have as you're hearing Chris talk, or Richard or Brett or Eric, anything that's happened here, throw a question in the chat. We have a team member on the call, Catherine, who is one of our membership advisors, who would love to even chat it up over there. And maybe you're already doing that. Some of you, feel free to put where you're from, your business, the business you're in, and we'll continue to roll here. But thank you so much, Chris. That was awesome. I'm going to jump a couple years earlier. Chris has been in the program around 10 years, right? And a lot of people are like, well, hey, what if I've only been in a year or two or three? Like, what is this journey, right? Eric Brown, I want to welcome you to the call. Give us a little bit of, again, how long you've been in the program, what's your business, what were the pain points or things you were struggling with or wanting out of Coach, and how is that delivered?
Absolutely. Thanks, Chad. I appreciate you having me on this podcast to share my story and journey as well. I've been in Coach going on 3 years, and I started in the Signature program, and then I jumped up to the 10X, and I'm finishing my year in 10X, and it's been a great experience all along from day one. And I was just nodding along with what Chris was saying because I had those same experiences, right? As an entrepreneur, you feel like you kind of just don't fit in, and you're trying to make solve these problems for your customers and your business, and there's really nobody else that you can talk to. And then you show up at Coach, and there's 40 people that have been in the same chair that you can share the same things with in different lines of business, and we're all going through the same growth. And Coach publishes out once you're part of Coach, there's a Coach Connect, which is a portal. And I was in the portal the other day, Chad, and I was going through this thing where we're working on hiring people, and we don't know exactly where they're going to fit. And it's kind of that who, not how, and I'll talk about that in a second. But what really resonated with me was this quote from Dan, and it's courage isn't loud. It's the quiet decision to keep going when the path isn't clear. It's hiring before you feel ready, investing when others hesitate, choosing growth over comfort.
Come on.
Entrepreneurship has never required certainty. It has always required courage. And that's why the future belongs to you. As long as entrepreneurs have courage, they have a future. And I read that right when I was making these decisions. It was like the right time to read that. But the community has just been a great place to come once a quarter and have these thought-provoking sessions. I lead an information security consulting company. I'm located in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. My local Coach group is in Chicago, but you can go to, I believe there's one in Santa Monica. You can go to Toronto. They're in different places of the country and even globally. But it's been a place for people to go like me, because this can be a lonely journey. And I've got a local peer group that I'm in, which is great, right? We meet monthly, and Coach doesn't take away from that. It really, it enhances it. My journey with Coach started just coming out of the pandemic. I was doing a lot of treadmill hours and listening to audiobooks. And I think the first book I listened to was The Gap and the Gain. And that was perfect, right? Coming out of the pandemic, you're just in this funky headspace. And I love that book so much. Next was who, not how. And I was like, wow, this is really hitting home. And then 10x is easier than 2x. And I think in that book, it talked about strategic coach. And I reached out and came to my first meeting. And like Chris, just blown away from the first meeting and the energy in that meeting. And that first year in coach, go through those tools, the gap in the gain, right? Getting into that mindset of looking back and measuring all of your accomplishments in the last quarter or the last 30 days or even the last week, right? With the weekly checkup calls of what are all these things that I accomplished, because that forward-looking goal is always moving. And if you're always chasing it, right? It's the donkey chasing the carrot. It can really be disappointing. But if you look back and see how far you've come, can really sit in that moment and just really be joyful and thankful about all that you've accomplished and the people that you've brought with you, right? Running an organization, you're able to influence all these people's lives and bring great people along. And as I started my journey doing information security consulting, when I talk to customers, I talk to them like, I'm going to come in and we're going to help you. And I have a team of people, and I equated it to the Ocean's 11 model, right? Where they're going to perform this heist and they bring in specialists. And that's who, not how, right? You find these right who's, as we call them in coach, right? The right people whose unique ability, it's something that they're passionate about, something that gives them energy and something they're really good at. That's a who. And we're, as entrepreneurs, we've got great ideas, great visions, but we need who's to execute on those visions. And I saw in the chat there was somebody talking about making that next step of finding their first who. And I think there's a quote on the wall at Coach where your eyes only see and your ears only hear what you're looking for. So now that you're looking for your who, you're going to run into that person most likely, right? Or you're going to know somebody who knows that person. So that Chad for me has just been really a great journey. And coach, I treat it as it's something for myself. It's business development and personal development for myself and my family to make me just a more educated and better person. And I'll give one more, for instance, and Chad, you do this wonderfully in your workshops. At one point in time during the workshops, you ask, what books are people reading? And just start writing them down on the whiteboard. And there's just so many good books that I've been introduced to through that session. And the cool thing about the 10X workshop has been some of the people that wrote those books are sitting next to me in class, right? So we've got people that are business leaders, they're visionaries, they're writing books, and they're part of Coach, and they might be sitting 2 tables over from you. So that's just been a really wonderful experience.
Eric, I love how you pointed to the wisdom of the room, right? Coach sets a beautiful table. Dan is the greatest business simplifier of our generation, in my opinion. He knows how to distill complexity, bring it down, put a handle on it so you can carry it the rest of your life. Share it with someone else. Your team can understand it. Clients understand it. Simplified. But then you go into these breakouts. And Eric, I like to say nobody's ever done Coach perfectly, but Coach does entrepreneurs perfectly if you just show up. And you talked about the power of that room and sitting in those breakouts and the wisdom that's around you, right? And those people and the things that you share. So many times I'll hear at the end of the day, clients sitting there going, man, the thing I got from Eric or Brad or Chris was their gem, because someone from a different industry was looking at their business through a different lens and said, try this. And they're like, unlock, right? It's beautiful. It's a huge, and I love you spoke to the generosity in that room. Everybody's coming to share to help help get you forward. It's a rich experience. Eric, you're a gift. It's been so fun to watch your trajectory again, and you're doing the work. It's people come to Coach and I see their mindsets shift, and then they go away for a quarter and they come back with stories where you're just like, are you kidding me, right? You got the who, or you did the thing around largest check, or your own unique ability, or staying in the gain and actually building that capability in your brain. It's just rich. You're a gift. We'll circle back again probably in a Q&A here, but let's continue on. And again, thank you so much. I would love to go to Brett Ruiz. Mr. Brett, super glad you're here. Give us a little bit of your story.
Wow. First, I got to agree with the first two. I mean, not much for me to say. Thank you.
always short and to the point, Brett. Thank you.
But I just I took a bunch of notes. So if I'm glancing down, I'm a 9 quick start, so I'm trying to do some detail here, which is not my specialty in my Kobe. So I love the stories that each of you shared, and I think that really reinforces and helps me because we're all on different journeys and we're all in different places in our lives. Yet I think for a coach, for me, it's been a place where I can work on myself. I think that was so important for me to lead my team, to lead my family, to lead at church, do those kind of things. So I appreciate everybody sharing. And then we ended up at the same destination as coach, or 10X or wherever we're at. So it helped me work on my own. And I know Andrew in the question and answer, and a couple people have, I can feel their journey that they're on right now. For me, it wasn't so much, again, I'm a 9 quick start. It wasn't so much for me writing the check. It was more of getting into the program and just trying to figure out how this fits into my life, into my business, into my team. And I can be a 9 quick start and overwhelm myself pretty quick.
Brett, real quick.
Yes, sir.
What's your business?
Industry? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm kind of the anomaly in there. There's not a lot of us, but construction. I own a kitchen and bath, and I own a roofing kit business. So a residential, improving lives by improving homes in Ohio. Second generation. I'm very proud of that, and we'll get to that story there. Coaches helped me move into that where we're able to have a second generation, which I didn't think we would 5 years ago. But, that's kind of, where what Andrew and a couple of them were saying is that I was just trying to figure out, I have a tendency to go too fast, and slowing down has helped me, but the tools have really helped me that I learned in the first couple years of coach. And then it was interesting because once I learned the tools, I learned to slow myself down, but then I think everyone in the chat and the questions like, oh, who do I get? I got to hire, I need a VP, I need this, I need that. So that was my second dilemma within the program, was like, okay, now I have all these ideas. Now I parsed them down with, the impact filter, strategy circle, and the 4C and all this stuff, but I couldn't give it to anybody. So then I'm like, okay, now, so I guess it's patience. It's a journey. And I think it's anything. And I think, Chris, you mentioned it. I don't know, for me, I just never, maybe it's my 9 quick start. I just don't have doubt. I don't have, I just go do. Now I create a lot of messes because I do that and look back and go, well, you probably shouldn't have done that. But so that's kind of been my journey. And I think that we're unicorns, and just being able to work through my Kobe, parsing through with the tools, just who I am, how I can stay in my unique ability 80% or more of the time, slow down and just be
Hey, Brett,
aware.
could I key in on what you just said right now? You said,
Absolutely.
I could stay in my unique ability 80% of the time. For those on the call, Coach, we talk about unique ability. Eric, you did a good job of talking about it. You too, Chris, about this. One of the things I love about Coach is you, the entrepreneur, being more of you. Like, not trying to be everything to everybody. It's literally getting really, really clear on who you are and getting to show up every day, with your best energy, your best value creation. And you mentioned 80% of your time. Brett, when you came into the program, we did that first exercise early on about how much, like what percentage of your work time was in unique ability. You guys remember that exercise? Do you remember what you were when you came in? Any idea? I mean, as a person,
I was about 60%.
You're about 60. So you went from 60 to 80, right? And it's really interesting to hear clients, because mine was so much even lower than that, right? Chris, you're nodding. What was yours? You remember offhand?
I think I was like at 15%.
15. And now
Yeah.
what would you say?
I'm right at about 80, 85.
80, 85. Eric, I see you.
Well, I was pretty close to Chris, 85, 90. We're still working on getting better with that.
I mean, you came in where?
Oh,
You were,
I came in where I was maybe, 85%,
oh,
just kind
okay.
of, yeah.
Okay.
And,
Wow.
and now I'm getting much better.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my numbers, guys, I'm almost embarrassed to say, and I can't wait to hear what Richard says about this, but I was literally 5%, and I think I was stretching it to get a whole round number, right? I think it was probably 3.8 or something. And now to live in a unique ability world, right? A world where you get to show up full of passion, superior skill, never ending energy, right? And never ending improvement. I mean, I'm like, I want to be in that space. Okay, Brett, love, love, love. What else? What else has you seen as kind of part of your transformation in coach? What else would you say?
Definitely connections. I really struggled with connecting. It was a little different um, networking group that I was used to before. I was in a networking group that had roofers, siders in it, and we were groups of 12 and we were non-compete. So we were open book, helped each other, knew everything about each other, grew our businesses to a certain point. So I kind of expected that in coach. And it
Mm.
took me a little bit of time. I kind of struggled with that of, making the connections, slowing down. And what I related to is like a wheel. My wheel was real wobbly, and that other group helped me put a bunch of spokes in it. Now I'm thinking, how am I going to put more spokes in my wheel? And it was through connections. And then finding the freedom of time was important. I had done a good job on that, but it just, it's, I think everyone said it. It's just different, being around people that are like you. I never had a bunch of, maybe most of you did, but I never had really, really, really good friends like in middle school, high school, college, because they were all like college, going to college to be, a white collar worker or following what dad did or doing. That was never me. It's funny. I always tell my wife, which she loves because she gets to travel, but she's like, all my friends, I have probably about 10, well, probably five really good friends that I can, they are all in Dubai states. They don't live like near me because of like, there's a couple of them in coach, a couple of them from the other group, but that's allowed me to make connections. And once I figured that out, the connections of, I think, Eric, you said it, you're sitting next to people that are like, I'm like, holy cow, he wrote that book, or he's the one that did that, like Charlie Epstein, he's, the 401k coach to presidents of the United States. I'm like sitting next to that dude and he's like talking to me like he put his pants on like me and like we're just best friends. So it was kind of cool to see that. But once I made the connections and then I started slowing down and just saying, okay, impact filter. Now it's helped me to hire. I have actually, it's my daughter. I'm very proud of it. She's 38. She's been with us 2 years. We're in the second generation. She is running the day to day now, and we got some help through Michael Walsh, which is in coach. So that's been a blessing. And I'd say I'm 85% of my unique ability. And I'll give you an example, and then we'll pass it on. I want to hear from Richard. He's got some great stories to tell. But that like today we're sitting there and we want to hire some more exterior salespeople. But they're like, well, Brett, like all the vendors, all the people, you've been doing this 35 years. Why don't you, here's what the avatar we're looking for. Why don't you go get them? I'm a 9 quick start. What do you think I said? Yeah, sure. I'll go do that. Well, about a week later, my wife's like, what's wrong with you? I was so stressed, so anxious because I didn't want to do it. So finally I said, you know what? Here's what I would like to do. And you guys let me know if this is okay. I said, you go find them, figure out who you want, get it down to 3. I'll come in, interview. I have no problem training them. That's in my wheelhouse and strategy. That's all I want to do. I want to be a puppeteer. And they're like, oh, okay, no problem. We'll let you know when we have them. But then my wife's like, okay. So I got my wife back. So that's good. Always a plus.
After 40 years, it's always a good move, Brad. Keep that
Still,
team intact.
I don't
Keep
know if they
that
have a
team.
tool for that, but I'm working on it. But
They
so that's
all,
kind of my journey, and just
yeah.
I think for anyone that's looking to join coach, it's hard to explain it when you're not in it, if that makes sense. It's kind of like our business. Someone said to me once, he goes, Brett, I said, we used to work out at the gym with me and we hired him. He's like, Brett, we're walking down the stairs. He goes, I just, when I would hear you guys talk about your business, I just couldn't get it. I didn't understand it. But now that I'm in it, he goes, it's like a cult. You don't want to leave. You want to be in it. So he goes, so that's what we've been trying to take and show the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But that's kind of
Yeah.
like, strategic coach isn't a cult, just so everyone
I was
hears.
hoping you were going to give it a little caveat. What's
Yes.
funny, Brett? You know what's funny with the word cult? It comes out of the word culture. Is the root word is cult, right? Which is again people that all speak kind of a common language and agree to a common set of values. And I'm not endorsing cults, but it's interesting because culture is so powerful, and the culture at Coach is so powerful because we speak a common language. You hear terms, gap and gain, unique ability, right? Free focus buffer, right? All of the things. There's a boatload of them. Entrepreneurial time system, lifetime extender, experience transformer, and they create this incredible simplicity that allows us to scale, right? And that give us those resources to do so. Thank you, Brett. Your gift. I appreciate you being on the call. And again, excited to continue to watch your journey here. Mr. Richard Rossi, guys, I like to joke that Richard is one of our few clients that was here before Dan was, but it's really not true. It's just a joke, but it was so close, I have to say it. Richard, give us a little bit of your story. You've been here at Coach quite a while, and again, your business now. And take us back to the very beginnings, if you would, Richard. What drove you to Coach? What were your fears coming into Coach? What or hesitations, if there were any, and then what's happened since? Glad you're here.
Thank you, Chad. It's great to be here today, and I'm glad everybody's taken the time to consider Coach. I'll tell you my own story, which goes. I, by the way, live in Washington, D.C., and my whole business is events and transformative events for high achievers from the fifth grade all the way through adults. And I've been doing that since the mid 1980s. And I remember very clearly before Coach. And I remember Lily Tomlin has this great quote, which is, "We're all in this together, alone." And I felt very alone. I felt very alone. I think I've discovered many entrepreneurs feel very alone. And I had a friend who was in Strategic Coach. And as a result of that, I got cassette, yes, a cassette from Strategic Coach, which was Dan. And Dan is the powerhouse behind Strategic Coach and a genius when it comes to business strategy and life strategy. And I use that word very judiciously. He truly is. He's one of a generation. And I remember putting in the cassette and listening to it, and I kept saying, he's talking to me. He knows me. How does he know me? Because he was talking about all of my challenges. And I had them all. I may have been making really good money, but I was a time pauper. I don't think I'd had a true free day, which is a day where you do nothing business related, in many, many years. And it's funny, if you're driving along at night in the fog with your headlights on, you can only see about that far. But you can take the whole trip that way. But the problem is that you never think strategically, you think incrementally. And that's what was going on in my life. And I kept thinking, well, what could I reasonably do next year? What should come next? I never had a path. I never had a plan. I never had a set of steps. And after listening to Dan, my friend called me and said, well, what do you think? And I said, I'm not going to do it. Well, why not? Well, I'm afraid it's going to be too touchy-feely, and I don't know. And he said, you got to do this. And if you don't like it, I'll pay for it. And I was like, oh, I can't say no to that. And the rest, as they say, is history, because Well, it's very interesting. There's a new word that I've heard that's a 2026 word started in Silicon Valley. It's called high agency. And I'm going to read you the definition. It's a trait mostly assigned to people who start their own companies, seize opportunities that others miss, and never take no for an answer. High agency people are rich, successful, or on their way to being both. They're action oriented. They find opportunities where others see roadblocks. It's also about actively going after what you want without waiting for the circumstances to be perfect. Well, the people in strategic coach or high agency, if you listen to this and you say, oh, well, that's me, I'm high agency, then the question is, are you going to be in the right room, or are you going to be like I was, really alone and lonely? And you know as well as I do that you've got family who loves you and friends who are rooting for you, but they don't get you at the entrepreneurial level because they're not in your shoes, they're not under your skin. They don't know what it's like to have to meet a payroll and to be responsible for the lives of other people as well as your clients. It's a huge burden, and it's one that you can share, but only to a certain level, unless you're in a room with people who are just like you, who get it. And of course, Dan gets it at an enormously high level, as do all of his coaches. So it's a combination of two things when you're in strategic coach. Number one, it's the structured learning that you have about how to go from this to a future plan that's based in having true goals and learning how to execute them one at a time and make your business 2 times bigger, 10 times bigger. Dan would say 100 times bigger. It seems insane, but so many people in that room have done it by following the system. And then also just the second part is, in fact, that community, as others on the call have said. It's being surrounded by these high agency people. And I'll tell you, there are times and I've seen many people, are metaphorically crawling into the room because they've had such a bad quarter and there's all these problems and they're feeling down and discouraged and they don't know what to do, where to go, how to take the next step. And they come into coach, and then by noon, they're like, oh, I have 20 ideas of how I'm going to get out of this mess and how I'm going to capture this opportunity. And in my own life, this has happened to me so many times in coach. I had a $4 million tax bill, and I was sitting next to a guy in coach, and he, literally in 1 minute, gave me a strategy for cutting that bill in half. And I went to my tax attorney, and I remember him listening. He just said, well, yeah, I guess we could do that. I'm like, what? But that happens all the time in strategic coach. It truly does. So what you got to think of really is, do you want to be a time billionaire as well as someone who has real financial independence? And do you have what it takes to get there? And if you do, how do you multiply that? And how do you get there in months instead of years? And that's the last thing I'll say about strategic coach is it's a great compression of time method. I'm not saying that you can't get to where we've all gotten to on your own, but I can say with almost complete certainty that it's going to take you an enormously longer time. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, us entrepreneurs, we over the millennia do the same mistakes over and over again, and we never seem to learn. And it takes us so long. But what if we didn't have to do that? What if we had a process where we could just shortcut everything, get an enormously more greater amount of time, which is the only thing you can't get more of, and so to make more of that, and then to get the freedom of not only time but also money which then allows you to have the security with the time to live a beautiful life. And that's the coach ethos. It's true. And you just have to have the guts to take the very first step, and then they'll take it from there.
Richard, your gift, man. I don't even know. You may have said this. You've been in coach almost 29 years, quarter after quarter. And here's what's fascinating to me. When I went to my first workshop, October of 2004, right? Richard, if someone had told me at that time, hey, Chad, 22 years later, you'll be coming back into a room with Dan Sullivan and all these amazing people and being coached, I would have laughed. I would have said, you got to be crazy, right? Like why would that ever be? And yet, Richard, your transformation and the transformation of you, Eric, and Chris and Brett was my transformation. And I'm going to speak a little bit to it real quick, and then we're going to open it up even again. I know that Q&A is over there, and I see some great chat going on, some questions being answered. And I'm going to fire a couple more at you guys. Guys, when I came to coach, I was running a screen printing company. We screen printed labels on glass bottles for food, wine, cosmetics, microbreweries. And it was stuck. The business was stuck. We'd reached a ceiling of complexity at Coach, we call it. And I was so frustrated because I was spending so much time trying to grow that business, scale that business. And I was also trying to build a marriage and a family and a life, right? I think every entrepreneur has these two, at least two, but often, right, we want both. I want a thriving company that does what it's supposed to do, creates the value, spins off cash, honors clients, employees, does all that. But I also want this extraordinary life. And there's no greater vehicle for an extraordinary life than a self-managing, self-multiplying company. The work we get to see you guys do at Coach and you panelists build these businesses that are become life-giving, right? And they not only to you, but to your team, right? To your clients, to your vendors, to all the people you're connected with. I wanted that so bad. And it was my vision, but I was so frustrated because it was so far from what I was experiencing. And I was referred into Coach. A buddy of mine, Mike Willis, go join Coach. I joined, and first thing, like you guys said, that first day in the room, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are my people. This is my place. Like everything that was coming out of the day, I was like, it was like water to a thirsty man, right? I was just going, God, I need this. And it was so simple. I always felt like I went into Coach with some complexity and I went out with clarity. Like I would go into the day frustrated and like, okay, I'm doing the work. And then I would go away with, man, I know what to do for the next 90 days. And quarter by quarter, right? Brick upon brick, precept upon precept. I didn't realize, but Coach was rewiring my brain. What's so cool, guys, I hear you speak and you cannot become the version you were before you came to Coach, right? Chris, Richard, I see you guys. You cannot think like that older version of yourself because you've been rewired in your thinking. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize how much I needed that. Richard, what's your comment, please?
Well, what Dan challenges us to do is exactly what Strategic Coach has created, which is this unique, in his case, experience that is unavailable anywhere else at any price. And Dan's point is, if that's what you create in your world, then your clients and customers will never leave you. And that's what's happened to us at Strategic Coach, in my opinion.
Brilliant. That's it, Richard. He calls it a value creation monopoly, right? Why would you go anywhere else? Can't get that anywhere else. That's so good. Hey, guys, I saw Candace's comment in the chat around, she's in her first year of business, right? And again, it looks like somebody's already going to answer her, but I love the fact that Coach puts out a boatload of content through podcasts, through books, through all these things. It is nothing like being in the room. Yeah, it's like you can get all that information. It's so fun. People come in and boom, first workshop, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I'm here, right? That space is there. But again, I love that our chat, they're answering and giving you the pathway here. And I cannot wait to welcome you into Coach when it's time, Candace. I just know that it's soon coming. Guys, I talked about my frustration. The life I get to live now, I mean it when I say this. I feel like I get to live a dream, like the dream I had as the entrepreneur prior to Coach. I love Chris, how you said before Coach, after Coach. I get to live in this unique ability world. I've to see, yeah, income 18 times, right? But the free time at the same time, probably more like 80% more. I mean, it's like, it's almost 100x on the free time, the impact, the purpose, right? This ability to feel like I have an abundance of time for what really, really matters. And I see that as someone who, not only do I get to run multiple businesses, I get to coach at Strategic Coach. I get to be married to the woman of my dreams for 32 years, Denise. We have 11 children, so they take a little bit of time. We just had our 14th grandchild. Turns out they want some time too, right? And I sit there and go, Coach, I cannot imagine my life had I not said yes to put myself in this space and in this room with these people doing this kind of work. It frightened me. It frightens me. Chris, I see your comment. What is it?
Yeah, so I get to be the beneficiary of your coaching in the 10X group. And one of the things that I think is so striking with you and your story is you give such an authenticity to everything that we do. And I'm convinced that Strategic Coach, we only call it a business coaching program so we can write it off as a business expense, but it actually looks at your whole life. I mean, the amount of time we spend talking about health and our families and yeah, the impact that we're making for our clients and all that, but what's the impact we're making on our team's lives and our own family? And you bring such an authenticity. I've seen you shed some tears in our workshops, but it's always from a very authentic place. And that's how we all show up in that room, is to give and receive that authenticity, because otherwise we're just a bunch of fakers in that room. And I adore coming to your sessions. I've met your beautiful wife. To hear you talk about her and all of your children. I love that just a few minutes ago you said, I was trying to figure out, we were trying to build a family. And I was like, well, Chad definitely figured that part out with 11 children, but 14 grandchildren. How amazing.
Chris, wow. Chris, you're a gift to me. You know what? I didn't know Dan, when he said 10X, was only talking about your business. I thought he was talking family. I went home to my wife. I go, we got to have 7 more. And she's like, what? What are you doing? Anyway, no, in all seriousness, Chris, here's what is so beautiful. You mentioned Gary Klaben. You mentioned Adrian Duffy. I'm one of 16 coaches that get to work under Dan Sullivan's thinking, right? They get to share the message that he writes. And every single one of those coaches, which have been my coaches along my journey as well, brings this same genuine, open, transparent. This is a place where people bring the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they all want to get better, and they help each other get better. And it's so weird. I've never been in more rooms where there's less ego. And you guys bring that. You bring this place. It's people aren't trying to outshine. No, they're just humbly trying to crush tomorrow and help the person next to them do the same thing. And I go, who gets to do that? Where it's a very, very special, very, very special world. So yeah, guys, here's the deal. We have 7 minutes. We're going to keep it to the wire. I would love to hear from each one of you a closing comment to somebody who's sitting here going, okay, I heard your journey, but if you're going to give them an impetus to just go to coach, what would it be? What would you say? Yeah, please, Eric.
Yeah. So, Chad, during coach, from time to time, you'll go around and you'll give us a card to say who else do you think you could invite to coach? And, my first couple of meetings was like, this is so good. Do we want more people in it? Right. It's scary. And then I got to thinking no, we want as many people in the same mindset as we can in here, because it's just going to build on each other. And the more people that we have to work with across the country, across the globe, how cool is that network? So really glad to be here today. Glad so many people came to listen to us, and hopefully they too will make that transition if it's right for them, because we'll welcome those people in and hear all of their great ideas and learn from them, and they'll learn from us, and it'll just keep building. So such a wonderful experience.
Perfectly well said, Eric, and thanks for being on the call. Guys, by the way, in the chat, Brian on our team is going to share a link for those of you who want to jump on a discovery call. And it's just what it sounds like. It's just a conversation with one of our membership advisors. It's there in the chat. and people are going to be available. And we also have a little incentive. Some of you mentioned books today. 10X is Easier, Gap in the Gain, right? Who Not How. These books are going to be available to you as a digital download if you want to book one of those discovery calls. And it's a great way to learn about Coach. So thank you, Brian. You threw it on the screen. That's even better. Brett, why don't you give me a minute takeaway as we wrap?
Minute's way too long. I would say you're here for a reason. You're on this call. You're investigating. Jump and start.
Thank you, Brett. You're a gift. Excited to, again, see your continued growth. Chris, you're up.
Awesome. I wish that I could have started Coach sooner. And in my defense, I tried, but I didn't qualify earlier. But it is by far the best decision I've made for me and my business. And I could not encourage more to take the leap. Know that we're wired to figure things out as entrepreneurs. And so you will figure out how to make this a worthwhile investment, and it will pay dividends for a very, very long time. So I hope to see you guys in a session soon.
Appreciate you, Chris. Bless you. Richard?
Well, not to be crass about this, but in my view, to live a happy life, you need time and you need money. And the most important thing is time, and money buys you time, and money buys you freedom, at least here in the good old USA. And a lot of you on this call think you have a business, but you don't. You have a job. Because if you go away for a week, or God forbid, a month, or like I did 8 months to take my kids around the world, you're going to come back and have no business at all, because it's not about a process and a system, and it's about you. Which also means your business has zero resale value. Is that really the way you want your life to be, being a high-paid employee? If you come to Coach, and by the way, I was a high-paid employee, and even though I had dozens of staff people, my rule was, here are your responsibilities, but don't do anything without checking with me first. So that's what in the military they call responsibility without authority, and that's death. So my point is simple. You need to convert that job into a business so that you can have a great life. And Coach is the shortcut to do that. And to Brett's point, you could dilly-dally around and all the rest, but if at this point you're a hell yes, and if you're right for Coach, you should be a hell yes for today, then you just need to do it. Just what's the worst that can happen? Just get out there and take a chance and do it. You will not regret it. And that's all I got to say on that subject.
Appreciate you, Richard, so much. Guys, I hope you've gotten a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a glimpse of kind of our Coach community, the work we're about. I want to tell you this. I don't know of anybody in the world that's more focused on making things bigger and better for entrepreneurs than Dan Sullivan. He's created a special world that we all get to be a part of. And it really, to me, is always a privilege to invite people into this space. Eric, I like how you said, hey, let's keep it to ourselves. No, I love how you said, no, let's make it better by inviting those in, that it's the right time and the right place for them. And some of you are sitting there going, it's not right for me yet. That's okay. Follow along. Guys, Coach has so many different resources and ways you can kind of follow along the journey. Tell it's that time. Some of you, it's today. Let's go. Some of you, it's going to be next quarter. Some of you, it won't be till next year. We're going to be here. I know that, because we love the work we get to do and the transformations we get to witness and experience, and the lives that we get to be a part of changing. And so, again, I would just encourage you to get on a call, have the conversation, see what's right for you. And if you decide to join Coach, I believe with all my heart, you will, day one, be in the room and be going, this is exactly where I need to be. And why did it take me so long? I haven't heard an entrepreneur that's gone through the Coach journey. And I will say one last thing in closing. If you join Strategic Coach as a client of 22 years and as a coach for now about a decade, give it 3 years. Just give yourself 3 years to receive the foundation of having your brain rewired. Because if you'll do that, I think you'll be like the people on this call and want to just continue to be here quarter after quarter and receive the transformation. Okay, love you all. You guys are amazing. Thank you, all my amazing friends and panelists, clients of Coach, and part of our amazing community. Thank you to our team, Brian, Catherine, and everyone else. Blessings. Go get them. Thanks, guys.